But hey, thank you for starting your week with us. Thank you for being here. We're in this series called Letters from My Future Self. If you missed last week, Lizzie, you just saw Lizzie hosting, our community life director. She taught last week on Ask for Help, and she's so authentic and she's so genuine. And if you missed that, be sure and go and check it out. And if you are ever gone, so now we go live, Facebook Live, every service. If you're on Facebook Live right now, thank you for joining us this morning. Every service, you can go on the Compass Roanoke Facebook page and watch that live if you're out of town. So be sure and do that. We are in this series, Letters from My Future Self, where we're talking about the things that we would say to ourselves or remind ourselves or encourage ourselves or even beg ourselves. If we could write a note to ourselves back at 20 or 30 or 45 or even 60, depending on where you're at. And even though we don't always live this out, I think we all inherently know that the decisions we make today and the decisions we make right now in many ways shape our tomorrow and they shape our future. So we set this series up as if our future self is reminding our current self of some things we want to for sure get right to set us up and help create a great future for ourselves tomorrow and for our family and for our loved ones and those we don't even know or haven't met yet. So today, our letter is this. Our letter is say, I love you, right? This is where we're going today. Let me read a few verses. We'll start in Proverbs 3, verse 3. Here's what we read there. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablets of your heart. The Message puts it this way. Don't lose your grip on love and loyalty. Carve their initials on your heart. Some of you know that in Matthew 22, the religious leaders come to Jesus and they're trying to have some conversation. They ask him, what's the most important commandment, right? There's 600 plus commands. What's the most important? And he boils it down to love God and love your neighbor, right? Then before Jesus heads out, he's talking to the disciples in Luke chapter 15, and he says, listen, this is my command. So you've got all these other commands, but let me give you one. So they're like, oh, Jesus has a new command. Let's write that down. And here's what he tells them. Love each other in the same way as I have loved you. So love it's a big deal. And how does Jesus love? He spends time with people. He believes in people and he empowers and invests in them. He cares for the needy. He would sacrifice himself on the cross in our place. And so today we're going to talk specifically about the power of saying, I love you, right? Saying I love you through word and through action. And to quote the great theologian and the great philosopher, Huey, Lewis, and the News, the power of love is a curious thing. Some of you've got this. Some of our kids don't know this at all. Makes the one man weep and another man sing. Don't take money. Come on, you know this. All right, hey, so this is true. And I was thinking about this. So 3 or 4 years ago, my oldest daughter had her first boyfriend, right? So she was probably 13. She's in junior high, and some junior high punk was trying to steal her affection and steal her attention away from me. And he was cute and he was funny and he was cool and played guitar and sang her a song or something. So I'm like, I don't have a chance, right? That's what I thought. And I wasn't ready to share my love or affection with another guy. I'm still not ready. I'm getting counseling. I'm working on that type of thing. But in that season, I just started praying that God would curse him, right? That's what I'm asking. Listen, nothing fatal, nothing tragic, right? I'm a pastor, people, come on. Just like he would break out and get, acne or have bad gas, whatever, right? I don't know, just so she wouldn't be interested. And so that's kind of where I prayed. And then And then I remember it wasn't much long later, my wife, I come home from work one day and she says, Maggie broke up with her boyfriend. And I thought, praise Jesus, right? He does answer prayer, thank you. But I didn't say that, right? Because I acted concerned because I don't know if she's heartbroken. I don't know if she's really upset. I don't really know what's going on. So I asked, what happened? Did she see him flirting with some other girl? Was he being mean to her in front of his friends? What went down? And my wife's like, no, nothing like that. They were hanging out, like in the lunchroom or wherever. They've been boyfriend and girlfriend for like a week or two. So they're hanging out and they're sitting around and like he leans into Maggie and just like real serious and real sincere. And he says, I love you. And she's like, and we're done, right? So I said, what did she do, right? What did she do? And my wife said, she just got up from the table, walked off, and dumped him later. I'm like, God is good all the time. And all the time, God is good, right? She's a little freaked out by the I love you. But the power of love, it is a really curious thing. And the power of love is very real. And again, Jesus boils down all the commandments to love God and love your neighbor. And then as he's heading out, he's like, hey, one more command, love others as I have loved you. So if I'm writing a letter from my future self, I would say, like, get this right for sure, right? Because it seems to be a very big deal to Jesus. Like, we're gonna get some things wrong in our lives, right? That's gonna happen, definitely. But if we get love right, we will have got the most important thing. And so let's just acknowledge up front that the word love gets thrown around very carelessly and very casually in our culture. We tend to use the term I love you for anything and for everything that we enjoy. So we love the Cowboys, right? And we love fajitas, and we love our new shoes or our new golf clubs. Again, junior high boys love ice cream, and they love Fortnite, and they love not having to shower more than once a week, right? So the word love often loses some of its impact or some of its weight in our culture. But here's what John tells us in 1 John 3:16. He writes, we know what real love is because Jesus gave up his life for us, so we also ought to give up our lives for our brothers and sisters. So we see real love is about sacrifice, and real love is about how we treat other people. And today, I want to help us do this most important thing, this most valuable thing in a very practical and a very personal way. And so if you're taking notes, here's the first thing I would say. Tell people, right? Just tell people that you love them. Just come out and say it, right? Just come out and say, I love you. How about we just practice it together in the room tonight, or this morning, and I'll feel really good because I'm gonna feel like you're all saying it to me. So on three, let's just say, I love you. 1, 2, 3. I love you, right? Some of you have no problem saying that at all. Some of you just right then, you just kind of mumbled it underneath your breath. Like, I love you, right? I know what you did because I was paying attention. And it's because we're all across the spectrum of how we feel and how we exercise doing this. So from the, like the teenagers or from the newly dating couple that stays up all night on the phone, refusing to hang up, right? Where they're like, I love you. I love you more. No, I love you more. Okay, no, I'm not gonna hang up first. You hang up first. No, I don't wanna hang up first. How about we hang up together? Okay, on 3, 1, 2. No, I love you more, right? 2, right, that's one end of the spectrum. To the guy over here going, I walked down the aisle, I stood on the stage, I said I do and that I love you. If something changes, I will let you know, right? So we've got both of those. So I know we're all across the spectrum on the room. Some of you you word it out always, just I love you and I love you and I really love you and I love you, right? Some of you are that person. Some of you, it's like pulling teeth to get you to say that. But I think it's hard to overestimate the power and the impact of saying I love you. And maybe some of the guys, maybe some of you ladies, you grew up in the kind of the Clint Eastwood, John Wayne, rugged Western era where tough guys don't show emotion, right? Like kind of our example is you don't need to show people how you feel because they should just know. I can count the number of times that my dad said I love you on one hand. Right? I can count the number of times my dad told me I love you on 0 hands, right? And I know he did. Listen, he came from a really, really poor family, a hard background, worked really hard to take care of us and make sure we never had needs. So he says I love you through his action, but not verbally. And listen, I haven't let that keep me from telling my kids how much I love them always. Like I don't ever want to hide behind background as an excuse not to break some patterns and strive to live this out. Cam Huxford says this. He says that you should make saying I love you standard operating procedure. Like, I think that's great. Standard operating procedure. I would totally agree. That should become part of your and our daily routine. So you get out of bed, you brush your teeth, you put your pants on, you tell your spouse, your kids, your parents, whoever, I love you, right? On the way out the door, on the way to school, on the way to work, just kiss them on the forehead. I love you, right? Just a little peck and go. And maybe you're thinking, okay, come on. Well, then it just becomes autopilot and it doesn't really mean anything. Okay, well, if I stop saying it, I guarantee it will mean something. And like you know how whenever your kids are little, and maybe you have little kids right now, or you remember back to that season, and one day you'll have little kids, and you would come home from work, and they would come running to meet you, which is a really, really awesome season. Like my kids don't run to the door to meet me now, but when they're little, and they're like, Daddy, and they run to see you. So I remember my girls, whenever I would come home from work, hit the garage door, and they would come running to the door, and they would want me to play with them and pick them up and hold them. And our rule was, I don't hold you and I don't play with you till I find your mom, right? And kiss mom and tell mom I love her. And Hannah, my middle daughter, because she's super manipulative, she would walk up and she would raise her hands and she would close her eyes and just pucker. And I would be like, hand to the face. Nope, no kisses for you until I find your mama. Mom always gets the first kiss. And then you had kids that do this, right? Where like they grab your leg and they're hanging on your leg. You're like, no, I'm not playing with you till you find mom, right? Because I want them to see and hear that I love their mom and that I really like her. And maybe you're in the room right now thinking, okay, well, if I tell my spouse I love them now, they'll say it's just because the pastor made me, right? You're only saying that because the pastor told you to. Okay, fair enough, maybe so. But if you're still doing it a year from now, they won't be saying that. Come on, right? And be creative in the way you communicate I love you to really help make it stick, right? This is the point. You want to help make it stick. So another thing, and I'll keep using examples from little kids because they're easy and they're funny, but you can think about this in whatever relationship and stage you're in. And parents, you can totally steal this one if you have young kids. So whenever my girls were little and my kids were little, I would go into their room at night whenever we would tuck them in for bed, and I would sit on the bed beside them and I would say, okay, look at me, right? Look at me. Do I love you? Because you are beautiful. And they would their eyes would get really big, right? And then they would smile really big. And then they would start to nod, yes. And I would be like, nope, I do not. I don't love you because you're beautiful. And they would start to look really sad. I'd be like, you are, right? You are absolutely beautiful, but that's not why I love you. And then I would say, does daddy love you because you sing like an angel? And again, their eyes light up and they would start to smile and they would start to nod yes. And I'd be like, no, daddy does not love you because you sing like an angel. It makes my heart happy when you do sing, but that's not why I love you, right? And then we go again, does dad love you because God made you so smart? And they would start to nod yes and be like, no. Right? And so they would start to figure out kind of how the game goes. So we just go down this line, does dad love you because you're such an awesome artist, right? Or because you're such a great helper. And then they're like, no, right? No. And then finally we get to the end, I would say, does daddy love you because you are his? And then they would nod yes. And we do hugs and we do kisses because I want them to know I love them because I love them, right? And because God gave them to me and because they're mine. And I want them to hear me say those things. Paul writes this, in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29, let everything that you say be good and helpful so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. And the words, I would say, I love you, are some of the most powerful words you and I can speak, right? They have an incredible impact. So I'm telling you, say those words and make them standard operating procedure, all right? So second thing that you can do to show that you love, put your love in writing. So here's what I know. Most of us in the room, some of you may be, most of us are not poets writing long, emotive love letters and poems expressing our deepest feelings. Like most of the guys in the room, you're okay with warrior David from the Bible, the guy that stomps like bears and lions with his hands and takes down giants on the battlefield. You're not quite as sure about David the poet, right? Playing his harp and writing and singing psalms, sharing his deepest feelings. But I'm telling you, you can absolutely do this and it will stick, right? I'm telling you, start with like a Post-it note or a text, right? Just send an encouraging text on occasion. Even start with emojis and then work your way up to words, right? Whatever. Get the Post-it note, because a Post-it note, you can only write 7 or 8 words on it. Write big, you don't even have to put that much, but just start. Stick it on the fridge, stick it on the mirror in the bathroom, stick it in their lunchbox. I'm just telling you, it will rock their world and they will not forget. So a couple of years ago for my birthday, my wife and kids, they made this compliment jar. And they took little strips of paper and they wrote small compliments on there and they stuck it in the jar and they filled the jar with all these little pieces of paper. And to this day, like I've still got that jar beside my bed. And when I'm having a really bad day, feeling bummed, stressed out, I'll just reach in there and grab out a compliment and it's a game changer. That is one of the simplest, most powerful ways to say I love you, right? And that's still blessing me. So when I left my first youth ministry several years ago, the first I started out at in Las Vegas, as we were wrapping up, the leaders and the students put together a scrapbook with all these pictures of our time there and wrote these little letters of appreciation. You talk about feeling loved. It's been like 12 years now, and I still have that. So on birthdays, on special occasions, write something significant, write something meaningful, write something special. It doesn't have to be big. It can be very small. I'm telling you, it has huge impact. So be creative, and I guarantee with kids, with parent, with spouse, with neighbor, with coworker, with the pastor, they will tuck those away and be holding on to those and be being blessed by that years and years later. So second thing, write some stuff down. Third thing, next way you can say I love you. Exercise loving touch. And let me emphasize, appropriate human touch and contact. It is very powerful. And listen, I know that some of you in the room are immediately going, okay, well, I'm not much of a toucher, right? Like on the love languages, I'm good with acts of service or, going out and buying stuff and giving gifts. Not so much touch. That's not really my thing. To which I would say, okay, it should be, because human touch and human contact is incredibly important. It's incredibly powerful. Jesus would oftentimes go out of his way and make it a point to create human contact. So in Mark chapter 10, you've got these parents that are bringing their kids to Jesus, and Mark records that he would touch them and that he would bless them. And then he writes this in Mark 10, verse 16. Then he, Jesus, took the children in his arms and placed his hands on their heads and blessed them. So again, he's picking them up, he's holding them, he's putting his hand on and blessing them. Jesus heals a man in Matthew chapter 8 that has leprosy, and when he heals him, he reaches out and he touches him, right? He doesn't have to touch him. We know from other parts that Jesus can do like long distance healing, right? He's capable of that, but this guy doesn't just need physical healing, he needs emotional, spiritual maybe healing. He's outcast, he's been rejected, he's been unloved. So what does Jesus do? Not just heals him, but reaches out and puts his hands on him. Again, appropriate human contact is powerful. And maybe some of you have read the research, right, that suggests that if you deprive infants of human contact, it significantly impacts them developmentally, right? It can behaviorally, even where some won't survive and die, right? It takes a toll on their health. If you want some infant in a hospital to not thrive or do well, just put a do not touch sign on the side of that baby's crib. I read some other articles, right? I went and read about the significance of human contact and touch, and one suggested that, listen, hugs, all right? Hugs can lower blood pressure, reduce stress, and even improve overall health as you increase in age. Hey, listen, I don't know for sure where the research came from, if that's completely legit or not, but I'm in, man, right? I'm all in, because like I'm a hugger. This is why I'll often stand out front when you're coming in, because I like to say hi to people as you're walking in. I like to get to see you, say hi, and I might hug you when you come in. And listen, like if I don't know you well, I'm not gonna make it awkward or uncomfortable for you, but I would say if you for sure do not like hugs or want a hug, then you should probably pick another door to come in. And then we will pray for you and your high blood pressure and your stress levels. That's what we're doing. Because listen, human contact, hugs can make a spouse, a child, can make people feel safe. We're called to be like Christ. And Jesus seems to put this high value on human contact. And again, maybe you're in the room going, well, I don't feel like I need to do this human touch thing to communicate the love of God. Okay, maybe not, right? Maybe of all the families in the world, yours is unique and they need a different expression of love. But I would say I highly doubt it. And if it makes you uncomfortable, then I would encourage you to learn to get a little bit uncomfortable. And I think you'll be surprised at how quickly you learn to enjoy and value doing that, right? Where you become the wingnut on the street corner with the sign or t-shirt that says hugs for free. You're like, get over here, big guy, give me a hug, right? I think you would be surprised. So, appropriate human contact. Next thing, a couple more ways we can show love. Number 4, if you're taking notes, small acts of kindness, right? Just little efforts to show people that you love them and that you're thinking about them. So I had another pastor friend talking about a guy that goes to his church, and he said he was at work one day and just he started feeling convicted that he wasn't spending time with his wife, wasn't valuing her, wasn't communicating that he loved her and making her feel special like he committed doing when they got married. So he decided this. He decided on his way home, he was gonna stop by the flower shop and get a single long stem yellow rose, right? Just one yellow rose for his wife to show she was special and the one for him. So he goes to the store, he buys it, and then he comes home. And instead of going through the garage, he goes to the door and rings the bell because he wants her to come to the door so that he can surprise her, and she comes. And then he just starts laying it out. He's like, I'm so sorry, I've got busy, I haven't made you feel special, I haven't valued you, I haven't spent time, I haven't done those things that I committed to doing and making you priority. So I just want you to know, I'm committing to that. I've got this rose as a sign that I'm making this commitment. And he said, she just burst out in tears, right? She just starts crying right there. And she's like, this is the worst day of my life. And he's like, what are you talking about? She's like, the kids all sick, right? They're all throwing up and puking. The dog ran away. The fridge broke. My hair, I can't do anything with it. And now you, right? Like you come home drunk, right? It shouldn't be like that, right? Like the response, that should not be the response of your spouse, your kids, your friends, your whatever, when you do something kind or thoughtful, right? Bro, you must be drunk, right? Like that is not how it should go. And this can go back to the put it in writing point, right? Write a note, write a letter, grab lunch and take it to your kid at school, or check them out of school and take them to go grab food. Surprise a friend or your spouse and show up and do lunch. Send the encouraging text, right, when you're out of town. Just make it a standard operating procedure then. I'm gonna send a text each night or each morning, telling the family, telling whatever, I'm thinking about them. I have a handful of guys that I really love and invest in around the country. And once every week or so, I will send an encouraging text to those guys. Love you, believe in you. Just look at the difference you're making for the kingdom and in people's lives. Just always want to do that. I've got a good friend that was kind of one of my leaders whenever we did young adult ministry that is now the youth minister for a church. And Lizzie mentioned this, some of you heard this last week, about the church where the lead pastor took his life. And so my friend is the youth pastor there. So I just sent him a text. I'm like, dude, I know that you are loving and just being strong for all these students and for all these volunteers and all these people that are just really hurting and confused right now. So I'm gonna love and be strong for you, right? And so I would just send texts. I would just check in. How you doing? Are you taking care of yourself? You taking care of your wife? Some of those emails can wait. You don't have to answer them all right now. Just trying to encourage. That can breathe, just small things, can breathe life and hope into a dry and frustrating season and cause the person's heart to soar, right? So small acts of kindness. Then one final thought for you. You have to be willing to enter into the life of the people that you love, right? Just enter in. Simply put, if you want to shorten it, show up, right? Just show up. So you understand, you don't go to your child's first band concert or to the elementary school to look at the art display because you think it's going to be awesome, right? Like you're not going to the T-ball game or your kid's first dance recital expecting to be dazzled by their performance. Entertained, definitely, but not blown away by their talent. You go for love, right? Because you love them. And maybe you have the protege, the phenom at 5 that's gonna be the next LeBron or the next Mozart. Maybe you get that story, not most of us. And more importantly, whenever you love people, you just show up for stuff, right? For the birthday, at the hospital when the baby's born or when the person is sick, at the funeral, at the event, little things, you just show up. Whatever it is, show up. So I shared a couple weeks ago about a hard ministry season that we went through where we had to say goodbye to some people that we really loved and that we really believed in and valued, and because of some just unhealthy stuff among leadership. And whenever you kind of wrap up and say goodbye in a service like this, it's really hard and it's really challenging because you have to do it multiple times, right? When you have multiple services. So you go through the first service and the first time it's this emotional roller coaster and it's heavy and it's tough. And then you have to put it on repeat and do it again. So we're going through this, and we had a community group that we were really close to, right? That we loved them, and they really loved us, and specifically, they really loved my wife. And so here's what they said. They said on that final weekend we would come up and share, they said, we're gonna show up for every service, and we will show up, and we will sit with you, and we will surround you, and we're just gonna be there for you, right? That is unbelievably powerful. Whenever we open the doors here, I had a great friend in ministry that took the weekend off and flew across the country just to be here as part of our opening day. And you know how whenever you see somebody, but you see them in a context that you're not used to seeing them in, it takes a moment for the brain to process, right? Especially if it's a surprise and you don't know they're coming. So you're like, I know you, but I don't know you here. So my brain's trying to put this all together. But he just showed up, and he brought his wife to be part of this epic moment for us. And it made a special day even more special just showing up. Some of you, you know that Jordan, our worship leader, so just a couple of weeks ago, his dad went to be with Jesus after this long battle with cancer. And listen, the celebration of life, it was hands down the most beautiful and the most powerful funeral that I've ever been to. Right? I mean, just story after story of people that he loved and people that he served and people's lives that he blessed. I mean, you talk about a guy that constantly showed up to be there for the people that he loved, right? Like sometimes people will tell these great stories at someone else's funeral, and you hear those stories and you think to yourself, that was really nice. And I think you exaggerated a lot, okay? Right? Not with Robert, right? Not with Jordan's dad. As great as the stories were, and they were unreal, you felt like they didn't even begin to scratch the surface or do justice to the life that he actually lived and the way that he showed love to people. And so it was really cool to see his family, right? Jordan and his mom and his sister sit there and have zero doubt about how much they were loved and how much they were valued. It was beautiful and it was priceless. And I watched that and I thought, man, I hope that my family knows that I love them half as much as they knew that Robert loved them. And then I watched that and I thought, this right here, right? This is what a celebration of life should look like. And we wish it would have been years and years and years from now. I mean, we would have loved that. But this is what it should look like, because here's a guy that spent his life showing, not thinking, not just feeling, not just pondering or considering, but showing the love of Christ to the most important people in his life. And it was, I can tell you, watching it, it was easily the most important thing that he could have done. And because of that, the celebration and the impact was beautiful, and it was powerful, and it was God glorifying. It was incredible. Paul writes this in Romans 12. Don't just pretend to love others. Really, listen, really love them. Then he says this in verse 10. Love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring each other. And then 13, when God's people are in need, be ready to help them. Always be eager to practice hospitality. So listen, showing this kind of love, this is what sets us apart as Christ followers. This is what differentiates us, where people are going, wow, look at the way they love one another. Look at the difference they make in the lives that they have touched. And listen, these are skills that these 5 things, every follower of Christ can and should master and be excellent at. And when you do, I'm telling you, we might not even know until we get to heaven the difference that it is making. But I am telling you, a difference it is making. So man, put these into practice. Take the opportunity in these different ways to show I love you, to family, to spouse, to kids, to parents, to neighbors, to coworkers. Do these things. Maybe you're in the room right now and you've never given your life to Christ and known this reckless, relentless, committed love for you, someone that loves you no matter what, right where you're at. We're gonna finish up next week talking about this a little. And you can make that decision today. And after I pray, we're gonna have some counselors and some people over here to your front right that would love to pray with you and talk to you. Or maybe you're just having a hard season. And let us pray and tell you how much Jesus loves you, because you need to hear that today. So let me pray, and then I got a couple other things to show you. Heavenly Father, you're such a good God, and we love you deeply, and we thank you that you love us just powerfully and unconditionally and even recklessly, that you would come and die on a cross to model what you want for us to do and to give us the example for what we should do. So I pray we would put this into practice, and I pray because of that, our families would be changed, and our coworkers would be changed, and our neighbors would be changed, and when we come to the end of our life, people would celebrate the way we've loved them beautifully. God, we need you, and we trust you in this, and we ask these things in your Son's precious and his holy name. Amen. All right, church, before we head out, I want you to take a quick look at this video to see what we've got coming up in the next couple weeks.
If I've learned anything, it's that people around here only see what they expect to see. They wake up, grab their coffee, kiss the kids goodbye without ever looking up. No one thinks to look past the manicured lawns and friendly waves. It may seem normal and routine, but the truth is, I've seen some crazy things. You never know what might be around the corner.
All right, that will kick off in 2 weeks when October starts again. Some of you are familiar with the Netflix series Stranger Things. Some of you have no clue. Again, it's Goonies meets Ghostbusters meets Poltergeist. And they have this upside down, which is the unseen dimension. And here's what we know. We're not gonna be weird about this, so don't think that, but it is October and it's a weird month anyhow. And there are some things that scripture talks about that are unseen, the spiritual world, and we want you to be aware for your good what's going on there. So we're gonna spend a month talking about some really great things there. Looking forward to that series. Be sure to get here and bring a friend. If you are a first-time guest today, we would love to say hi to you. Grab that Connect card, head out the doors to your back right. Let us give you a gift and get to know you. And if you'd like prayer or to make a decision anyway, head right up front here, CM. We would love to talk with you. Love you guys. Love you. Have a great week. See you next weekend.